Hello, my dear patrons. Welcome to a Sketchbook Peaks, and this is one that I promised you. What I want to do is take these two, and really any kind of spontaneous painting, and break it down into exercises. This is sort of like, maybe you could consider it warm-ups, or you could consider it getting your feet wet if you're new to spontaneous painting. I sort of do this on scratch paper, when I'm trying brush strokes, or I'm trying a paint, or I'm trying any kind of a technique. But I thought it might be cool to kind of formalize it into an actual exercise, a directed exercise. And it's really just as simple as taking portions and parts of this in small scale. Really, I'm just going to fill a page with them, and I think you'll see what I mean. This is something you could probably paint along with if you wanted to. It's going to be easy, it's going to be quick, and the point is just to kind of get into a rhythm, into a flow, and get comfortable with the paint and looking for your shapes and your values and your compositions. All right, we'll start up here, and I've kind of zoomed in there a little bit. I'm going to switch brushes around and just try different things, and that's kind of the point. What I want to start with is just a few basic shapes, and I'm not going to do any ink work till the end. And by the way, whether you do ink over wash, wash over ink, or don't use any ink at all, this still exercises your eye and your ability to see. And I'm going to be using this Schmincke super granulating paint just because I have some left over. This is not important. These colors are not important. So these are what I did in the super granulating review, which, as I make this video, this is the most recent video I've put on YouTube. Sometimes the hardest part is starting, and when I start these, I do not think about it a whole lot, okay? That kind of ruins the whole idea and the experience. You're being spontaneous, but you're not saying, oh, I want to make this tree here, and that bush there, and that hill there, and so on and so forth. Instead, just be very stream of consciousness about it. Just very spontaneous, okay? I'm going to start with, and I'm just going to make some shapes to start with. I don't know what those shapes are going to look like. I'm going to vary the color. That's pretty dark. Maybe add a little water. Get something to mingle. Somewhere in your shape, put some kind of like dark contrast, okay? Use any number of techniques you can think of, but keep it simple. Maybe go in with a brush with nothing but water and bleed out something. Get a sprayer if you want to, and on another one or two I may do that. Not going to do any more to that. That's number one, okay? I'm going to switch to a flat. Think of these initial things as almost abstract. Don't necessarily try to make anything. Keep a little vignette. Don't go thinking, tree, sky, ground. We're just thinking in terms of excerpts of what might be a larger piece. Don't go looking for something yet, okay? And that's, I think, kind of important. We'll let that be a number 2. Moving on down. Just use one color if you want to, and don't do any bleeding or soft blending. Pat in some deeper pigment where you don't have much water. Think compositionally, though. I mean, think in terms of relating shapes to each other, but don't think realistically, not yet. I'm going to switch to a big old fat round. Let's just do something very distinct. And you see how quick these are going? Oh, look at that bottom raggedy edge. That was not planned, but that's cool. I like it. I like it. Let's darken one spot maybe. Let's pat in maybe. I'm going to make both of these on this line monochromatic. Keep it a very simple, basic shape. Colors I'm using are Glacier Brown from the new Schminke line, Deep Sea Green, Deep Sea Violet, I believe. I don't have them in front of me. I just have this little palette. Keep in mind that after you add your line work, you can add more paint. This is just a great way to exercise your eye for just sticking down some shapes. Let's make this last line, I'll use multiple colors again, and let's make it a little more washy. More like I usually do with spontaneous painting. Maybe I'll start with some water. Maybe I'll start with a little bit of combined wet and dry. Still have some pretty dry edge shapes here, but so many different ways of creating shapes and washes and values. Okay, thought I might do more of that, but I like it where it is. Let's get some more of this violet. I'm being very washy with these. This is a deep sea black. Mostly black, but it separates into a blue. Get my mini mister here. Get that to run. Let the watercolor work. Don't overforce it. Don't overwork it. Let's take a look at what we got. So in just a few minutes, we got 6. Now really these mark making exercises are important. And you could do just pages of these if you want to. I'm going to go to a black fountain pen. You can use any kind of pen if you want. You don't even have to use a pen. You can use a fine brush. However, let's do these studies with line and let this completely dry. So add your details on top of this in any way that you like. But for now, let's do separate it into these broad shapes with the blending and the kind of abstraction to more distinctly drawn elements. I'm going to start looking for things. So before I go any further, I'm going to dry this. All right, let's start up here at the top. Now, one thing I get a comment a lot on is, Steve, I'm doing what you're doing. I just don't see what you're seeing. I'm sorry to laugh. I'm not making fun of anybody, but why I'm laughing is because I really don't see anything yet. And that's sort of the secret sauce. I don't see anything in this yet. What I see are little changes in contrast. That's what I see. Now, yeah, I made kind of a ground-ish area that flattens out and upwards area. That's common in almost every landscape. You'll have elements that thrust upward, like trees and foliage and mountains, large rocks, and you'll have ground that it sits on. It could be mountainous, sloping, flat, but you have those two planes. So yeah, there is that. But I'm not looking at that and saying, oh, I see exactly what that is. I see exactly what that is. No, I don't. What I see is shapes and contrasts, values, darker areas and lighter areas. And so what I try to do is find one thing. I start with one thing and I say, let's see. And right now with this exercise, I want to keep it very, very simple. So I have a dark area here, a lighter, maybe we're just going to make some branches, and stuff is subject to revision. Now granted, you need a visual library for this, a mind's eye library, and that just comes with time and sketching. I'm using this area. We'll have this drawing have a bit of foliage on the tree, okay? I don't know when I do this if it's going to turn out well or not. Let's have them continue up here. As I said before, do this with paint if you want to. Again, I'm sort of doing some expressive lines that kind of hint at ground clutter, where the base of this shape starts to spread out. I'm not sure making something out of this light to dark area really works, so I'm probably just going to draw over that. And that's what you do. You revise your thinking. You need to plant the bottom of that though, so it looks like it's going behind something. Down here, all of this is ground stuff, so maybe we surround some of it with some lines. And again, I'm not seeing all of this developed in my mind's eye. I'm trying something, taking a look, then trying more. When you add a little line of something like that, you know, it kind of produces some separation and makes it look like there's an edge. If you want to, sort of, and I've done this a lot, sort of dot and dash. You know, it's sort of a timid way of adding detail, and you say, well, something worked there, and your eye begins to fill in the shape, and you go, yeah, I think maybe it will. Feel free to let something, you know, move out of the shape. I may have to see if this pen needs refilling. It's not sketching very well right now. Okay, refilled this pen. Let's see what we're doing. I feel like this all needs some area with some really dark focus in places, like maybe here. Maybe there. You could keep this, the line on something like this, much simpler and almost graphic-like if you want. You know, it's totally up to you. You're trying things. Don't get frustrated if you're not coming up with something that looks good. Just, you know, focus on the experiment. Focus on the study. Focus on what you're seeing happening and what it's telling you, if anything. Like I did over here, I'm just thinking of this as a pen and ink drawing on top of color. I know that sounds like a duh, but you may not be thinking of it that way. You may be trying too hard to kind of make the two dovetail. I like to give extra value weight to the underside of things, or what looks like the underside of things. So that's why you'll see me bolding up the lines or adding some cross hatching, you know, to make them look round. Come out here, maybe draw a few little details that come outside the color. I feel like that helps lead the eye into it, pull it together a little bit. Okay, so that's not bad. And I may go back over all of these with just some little top splashes of color, just to sort of pull things forward and push things back. All right. Well, what do we got here? I don't know. I see a shape here, so maybe that's a rock. Let's try that, see if that works. Sitting on another rock, maybe sitting on another rock. It's okay to do these spontaneous things with reference in front of you. By reference, I mean like ideas, examples of trees, examples of rocks. You know, you don't have to do them totally out of your head. And if you're not experienced at drawing these things, you might not want to do them completely out of your head. Just drawing that tree a little differently than. See how this color change happens here? Maybe I'll add some separation there. Maybe there's a bit of underbrush here that's creating a something like a bush. Maybe another rock. Okay, I'm going to stop there with that one. Trying to keep these simple so we can move along. Now with these more monochromatic ones, let's do some where we keep it very simple. Maybe even a little stylized. I really liked the way these simple shapes with little branches came out. So I'm just kind of trying to imitate that idea. And these little bottom areas, which were totally accidental, it was like the bottom of my round where it didn't have paint. It just kind of left that. That's just lovely. I'm going to leave those. Maybe have branches and trunks come out from behind that. It could be just as simple as that. The temptation is to just sort of over render and detail it. Believe me, I'm feeling the temptation right now. And you may say, because I do all the time, I need to go outside and sketch or get some photos and sketch and increase my visual vocabulary, because my visual vocabulary is not fluent enough to describe what I need to describe. So that would be the next thing to work on. And then when you've done that, you can come back and these things get a little easier or a little more productive. So yeah, I like the simplicity of doing one like that. Maybe some things you don't even express. You just leave some of this as just color shape. You know, one of the things I'm finding, and I found that with these two, is that the first one I tend to be really detailed, and then my mind starts thinking in terms of how I can simplify. And I have so many people ask me, how do you simplify? Well, you just keep drawing, and each time you draw or paint, you think about what you could leave out or what you could express in a more simplified way. And sometimes it just comes naturally. All right, let's stop with that one. Two there, nicely simplified. That right there was a good exercise just for me in practicing on just cutting down on the detail. Go to these bottom two here. Kind of lend themselves, the ideas, to a little more detail. I don't know. I almost want to get my paintbrush. Oh, why not? Let's get a paintbrush out. Let's just do this with paint, because they're just already looking a little more representational, a little less stylized, if you will. And really, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm using this rigger, and I'm going to do mostly line, but I have the option of sort of adding this in a pale wash if I want to. And I am working pretty fast because there are so many of these, but I don't want to lose the opportunity to be fresh and simple, to express without over expressing. So I don't want to lose that. And I'm especially trying to push that. One concept I always teach in my landscape classes is that edge detail is the important detail, not interior detail where things are pretty much the same value. Where contrasts happen or when transitions happen, that's where it's important to see detail. I mean, you don't have to detail it all for sure, but I got that violet there, so trying to play into that a little bit. Hopefully I've given you the idea that, hey, you know, you can do this line work with a rigger, and you can draw on top of it the same that you can with a pen. But I think that gives you the idea. All right, let's work on this last one here. What I see here is a bunch of rocks. Let's just see what we can do. I'm going to continue using a brush, and I'm trying to remind myself to say simple. Lightly separate some of these forms. And again, I don't see it all per se at once, so I'll try one thing, and say, yep, that worked. Nope, that didn't work. 9 times out of 10, I'm separating something that either looks like a distinct shape or uses a point of contrast. For instance, this line here, let's continue that up and make that a whole something. Go lightly, you know, if you want, until you see it sort of come into focus a little better. Something looks like it should go behind another thing, and you can do that. Rocks are mostly facets, you know, facets facing the light, facets facing away from the light. You just try to find those facets and coax them out. Kind of a weird looking pile of rocks, but nevertheless a pile of rocks. Maybe rock formations like you might find out west, you know, where there's like holes eroded through or something. They don't have to be perfectly convincing. That hole there may not actually be a very good realistic hole. So let's make it a facet. Give it a little bit of tone And that's maybe facing the light, so it looks like part of a rock there. As you figure out what's facing away from the light in the darkest recesses, you can kind of hint at those. All right, that's good enough on that one. I think we're going to be done for now. I hope you get the idea. Just keep working at it. That's why you do it, you know. Go out and sketch from real life or for some good reference photos to increase that visual vocabulary, as I mentioned. Try different ways to draw. Be very simple. You could get a little more detailed. Try drawing with a brush on top of your shapes. One thing you can do, I didn't spend a lot of time doing it, you come back in on some of these edges and lift. Pull in some highlights if you really want to detail those. I may fiddle around with that. And you're just breaking down bigger pieces like this, or even the bigger ones like I do, into little shapes that you can study and practice. As you gain confidence, you can go into bigger ones. Just an enormous amount of fun. Thanks, everyone. Hope that helps. Let me know how you're doing with it. Maybe post some of your results in the community section. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.